I've replayed that night in my head 100 times, wondering where exactly it went wrong. Maybe I should have kept driving. Maybe I should have trusted that uneasy feeling in my gut instead of trying to be a decent human being. But I didn't, and because of that, there's a man's face I'll never forget and a sound I still hear every time I'm alone on the road at night. It was a Thursday in late October. I'd been driving home from a construction job 3 hours outside the city. I stayed late to finish some paperwork and ended up leaving after midnight. My GPS said I'd get home around 3 a.m. I was tired, but alert, sipping coffee from a gas station cup and letting some old rock station keep me company. The highway Route 37 was quiet. Too quiet. No cars, no lights, just miles of dark asphalt cutting through cornfields and tree lines that looked like black walls. About 40 minutes into the drive, I saw him. At first, I thought it was an animal something hunched near the side of the road. Then my headlights swept over him, and I realized it was a man. He was standing just off the shoulder, waving his arms slowly, almost lazily, like he wasn't sure if he wanted to be seen. I eased off the gas and squinted. He had a small duffel bag at his feet, and his clothes didn't look like what you'd expect from someone stranded dark jeans, a gray jacket, boots that looked new. I drove past him at first. I don't usually stop for strangers, but a few seconds later, guilt started to creep in. What if he really needed help? There was nothing for miles, no gas stations, no towns, just endless Stark Road. Against my better judgment, I slowed, checked my mirrors, and turned around. He didn't move when I pulled up beside him, just kept his eyes on me like he'd been expecting me to come back. I rolled down the window and called out, "You okay, man?" He nodded once. "Car broke down a few miles back," he said, voice calm and polite. "Been walking for an hour. You heading east?" "Yeah," I said. "Next town's about 20 minutes." He gave a small, grateful smile. "You mind giving me a lift?" Everything about him seemed normal. His voice was steady, his smile was easy. Still, something about his eyes bothered me, not the color, but the way he didn't blink much. I told myself I was being paranoid and unlocked the door. He thanked me quietly and climbed in. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not sweat or gasoline or dirt, he smelled clean. Too clean, like fresh laundry or hotel soap. His clothes weren't damp or wrinkled. I asked if he'd been walking long, and he said yeah, maybe an hour or so, though he didn't sound out of breath. He told me his name was Ryan, said he was driving from Louis to visit his sister in Cedar Grove, but his car started overheating and died somewhere along the way. He tried calling for help, but his phone had no signal. "Lucky you came by," he said with a smile. I nodded, trying to relax. I told him my name, Mark, and we made small talk. He asked what I did for work, how far I was heading, that kind of thing. Normal stuff. But then he said something strange. "So you live over on Willow Lane, right? Near that little grocery store?" I froze. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I hadn't told him where I lived. My truck had no company logo or anything like that. "How'd you know that?" I asked. He chuckled. "You mentioned it earlier." I didn't. There was a pause. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Must have heard wrong," he said softly. The air in the truck suddenly felt heavier. My brain started running through explanations. Maybe he'd seen my address on some paperwork or a keychain or something. But there was nothing like that visible. I tried to shake it off and change the subject. Still, I kept glancing at him, and every time I did, he was looking right back at me, eyes steady and unreadable. A few miles later, I noticed something else, his duffel bag. It was small, but oddly shaped, like something hard was inside. He kept it between his feet, one hand resting on it casually. I tried to peek at it when he wasn't looking, but he shifted it closer to his leg. We drove in silence for a while. The only sound was the wind and the tires humming against the asphalt. The moonlight flashed through the trees, slicing across his face in pale strips. He didn't blink much. just stared ahead, calm and quiet, like a passenger who knew the route better than I did. Then my phone buzzed. One bar of signal flickered on. I reached for it, more for comfort than anything, but before I could check it, he spoke again. "You can just drop me off before the bridge," he said. "There's a path that cuts through the woods to my sister's place." I frowned. "There's no houses out there," I said. "It's just woods and a river." He smiled again, that same calm, practiced smile. "You'd be surprised." Every instinct in my body screamed at me to keep driving, not to stop anywhere near that bridge. The road ahead was empty, but in the distance, I could see the old steel structure glinting under my headlights. I'd crossed it dozens of times before. There were no paths near it, no houses for miles, just the sound of water and trees. "Look," I said carefully, "why don't I drop you off in town? You can call your sister from there." He turned his head toward me slowly. "You don't have to go all the way," he said softly. "It's better if you don't." That was the moment my gut flipped. His tone wasn't pleading anymore. It was flat, final, like a statement, not a suggestion. My pulse started to climb. I glanced at the speedometer. I was going 60. I thought about what I'd do if he tried anything. The knife I kept in the glove box flashed in my mind, but it felt too far away. He must have noticed my tension because he leaned back, resting his hand on the duffel bag again. "Relax, Mark," he said. "You're doing fine." He said my name again, like he'd known it before I told him. My mouth went dry. I kept my eyes forward, counting the seconds until we reached that bridge. When the steel beams came into view, he sat up straighter. "Here," he said quietly. "Pull over." I didn't. I pressed the gas instead, trying to keep my voice steady. "We'll get to town in 10 minutes. You can find help there." His smile disappeared. I said, "Here." He reached for his bag. My brain screamed, "Do something." I slammed the brakes, jerking the truck to a stop in the middle of the road. Before he could unzip it, I shoved open my door and jumped out, leaving the engine running. The cold air hit me like a slap. I ran around to his side, ready to yell or drag him out. I didn't even know what my plan was. But the passenger seat was empty. The bag was gone too. The truck's interior light flickered weakly. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. I spun in circles, scanning the road, the trees, the shadows near the bridge. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of the idling engine and the wind cutting through the steel rails. I walked around to the back, half expecting him to appear behind me, but the road was empty in both directions. No footprints, no sound of someone running, just gone. I stood there for what felt like minutes before climbing back in and locking the doors. I threw the truck into drive and sped off, hands shaking. I didn't stop until I hit the lights of the next town. I pulled into a gas station, parked under the brightest light, and finally caught my breath. I called the police. They sent a car to check the area. The officer I spoke to was polite but skeptical. Said maybe the guy just didn't want to ride anymore. Maybe he slipped off the road while I wasn't looking. I didn't argue, but deep down, I knew that wasn't it. A week later, I got a call from that same officer. He said they'd found an abandoned car a few miles before the bridge engine cold, doors unlocked, keys still inside. The registration belonged to a man named Ryan Keller. He'd been reported missing 2 days before the night I met him. The officer asked if I wanted to come down to look at a photo to confirm if it was the same person. I said no. I didn't need to see it. I already knew. Because every night since then, when I drive home down that same stretch of highway, I see the same thing in my headlights. A man standing on the shoulder, waving his arms slowly, like he's still waiting for me to stop.